In the village of Zango lived a woman named Salima, as poor as the dust beneath her feet. Her clothes hung on her like worn-out rags, full of holes and tears, barely covering her frail body. Her heart was more like a hollow shell than a place of warmth. When the sky wept, her leaky roof offered no shelter, and the cold wind mocked her through broken windows. Salima had no bed. She curled up on the hard, bare floor each night, like a hungry cat trying to stay warm. She prayed for a better life every evening, but each morning greeted her with the same struggle. She did all she could to survive, fetching water, washing clothes, even working in the fields. But no matter how hard she labored, her hands always returned empty, as if the world had turned its back on her. The women she grew up with were now married, living comfortably with their families. They wore elegant clothes, their children playing joyfully around them. But Salima had no husband, no children, no one to call her own. The villagers whispered behind her back, saying she was cursed, born under a star of bad luck. Even the men kept their distance, afraid her misfortune might cling to them. Salima's life was one of sorrow. She drifted through the village like a shadow, unseen, unloved, and forgotten. Yet she held on to hope, believing that one day the sun would shine brighter on her. But that day had not yet come. One sweltering afternoon, Salima carried a bundle of tattered clothes to the river. The sun blazed overhead, and the water shimmered like liquid silver. She knelt at the edge, scrubbing her rags with hands roughened like the village paths. The rushing water was her only comfort. Suddenly, she heard soft footsteps behind her. She turned, startled, her heart fluttering like a frightened bird. Standing before her was a tall, regal woman dressed in clothes so fine they looked fit for royalty. Her skin glowed, her jewelry sparkled, and her smile was sharp and knowing. "Good day," the woman greeted, her voice as smooth as honey. Salima blinked, unsure if she was dreaming. "Good day, Ma," she replied, barely above a whisper. The woman stepped closer. "My name is Kemi. I've been watching you, Salima. I know the hardships you face." Salima's eyes widened. How did this stranger know her name? Kemi smiled as if she could read her thoughts. "I have a business proposition. It's simple, and it will change your life." Salima's mind spun. "What kind of business?" she asked. Kemi opened her bag and pulled out a bundle of crisp cash. "You will collect used panties from the village women. Bring me as many as you can, and for each load, I'll pay you generously." Salima's jaw dropped. "Panties?" she asked, confused. "Yes," Kemi said firmly. "Don't ask questions. Just do it, and you'll never live in poverty again." With that, she handed Salima the money and turned to leave. "Remember," she said, "I'll be waiting." Salima sat by the river, clutching the money. Her thoughts were tangled with confusion. What kind of business was this? Why panties? She didn't understand, but the weight of the money in her hands was real. For the first time, hope flickered in her chest. She packed up her clothes and went home, her heart beating like a talking drum. The next morning, she woke up with a plan. Knowing the villagers might grow suspicious if she only asked for panties, she decided to disguise her trade. With Kemi's money, she bought colorful buckets and shiny bowls from the market. When she returned, she went door to door. At the first home, an old woman answered. "Good morning, Mama," Salima greeted, holding up a bright blue bucket. "I'm exchanging these for any old clothes, shoes, even undergarments that you no longer need." The woman grunted. "Old clothes? Shoes? Panties? What sort of business is this?" "It's for a new venture," Salima replied steadily. "If you have anything you don't use, I'll trade this fine bucket for it." The woman's eyes lit up. Without hesitation, she brought out a pile of old clothes and shoes, with some worn-out panties on top. Salima smiled and handed her the bucket. She did the same at every house. By evening, her sack overflowed, stuffed with clothes, shoes, and most importantly, panties. That night, she sorted through her haul, separating the panties into a special sack. The rest she burned near the river, the flames hiding all traces. The next day, she returned to the river and delivered the sack to Kemi. "You've done well," Kemi said smoothly, handing her another thick bundle of cash. "Thank you," Salima whispered, her chest swelling with hope. "Keep going," Kemi replied. "Your life is about to change." Salima's trade flourished. Each day brought her closer to a life she once only dreamed of. The villagers remained unaware of the secret behind her success. Word of her trade spread quickly. Her colorful buckets and bowls became a sensation. Everyone wanted to exchange their old items for her bright wares. "Have you seen Salima's new bowls?" one woman asked. "Yes," her neighbor replied. "I traded some old shirts and got one. It's beautiful." Crowds gathered wherever Salima went. She never lacked customers, and her sacks were always full. With Kemi's payments coming steadily, she repaired her roof, replaced her broken windows, and wore fine clothes like the women she once envied. She no longer went hungry. Her transformation amazed the villagers. "Look at Salima," they whispered. "She's no longer the poor wretch we knew." But beneath her smiling days, the nights held a secret. When the village slept, Salima quietly carried her sacks through the dark paths to the river. There, under the moonlight, Kemi would wait, her candles flickering around her in a perfect circle. Without exchanging many words, they completed their transaction, Salima handing over the panties, Kemi handing over the money. No one in the village suspected a thing. They believed her success was due to hard work. But something strange and hidden was unfolding by the river, and it would not remain unnoticed forever. Salima's business soon reached neighboring villages. Her fame grew, and so did her wealth. But one person was not fooled, her neighbor, Tinu. Tinu had always been observant. She noticed Salima's nightly disappearances and couldn't shake her curiosity. One night, she followed her, cloaked in a shawl. She watched as Salima slipped away with a heavy sack. Through the cold, silent night, Tinu trailed her quietly. At the river, she crouched in the tall grass and gasped. Kemi sat waiting, candles burning around her in a perfect circle. She opened the sack, pulled out only the panties, and began chanting in a low, rhythmic voice. The air thickened, and Tinu's breath caught in her throat. Tinu watched in horror as Kemi raised her hands. In an instant, the panties vanished into thin air, leaving behind a faint, eerie glow. A strange, chilling laughter echoed across the river, wrapping the night in dread. Tinu's legs trembled. Her heart pounded like a war drum. She wanted to flee, but her feet felt glued to the earth. What had she just witnessed? Who or what was Kemi? And what was she doing with the villagers' underwear? Fear gripped Tinu as she backed away, her mind spinning. She had seen enough for one night, but deep down, she knew this was only the beginning, the start of something dark and terrifying. Her heart raced like a trapped bird as she stumbled through the dark forest. The echo of Kemi's laughter clung to the air, and every rustling leaf sounded like hands reaching out to grab her. Clutching her shawl tightly, she forced her legs to move faster, though fear made them feel like stone. She didn't stop until she reached her house. Slamming the door behind her, she bolted it shut and collapsed against the wood, gasping for breath. Shadows in her room seemed to stretch and twist. The silence was deafening. Tinu sat in the corner, knees pulled tightly to her chest. Her eyes darted around the room, unable to close. Sleep refused to come. Over and over, her mind replayed the scene by the river. The candles, the chanting, the vanishing panties, and Kemi's haunting laughter. She hugged herself tighter, whispering prayers beneath her breath, begging for dawn to come. When the first light crept into the sky, Tinu could bear it no longer. She threw on her wrapper and dashed out of the house, bare feet slapping the dirt road as she ran to the elder's house. Dust rose behind her as the village slowly stirred awake. The elders were just rising when she arrived, their faces marked by age and sleep. But one look at Tinu's wild eyes erased all weariness. "What is it, Tinu?" asked one of the elders, his voice thick with concern. "It's Salima," she blurted, breathless. "She goes to the river at night with a woman named Kemi. I saw it. I saw what they're doing. It's dark, evil." The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Another leaned forward, voice grave. What exactly did you see? Tinu took a shaky breath. There were candles. Kemi was chanting. She took only the panties and they vanished. Then came the laughter. Evil laughter. The elders fell silent. Their faces darkened with every word. Finally, one stood. This is a grave matter. We must summon Salima at once. The village bell rang out, sharp and urgent, waking everyone. Men, women, and children gathered in the square, murmuring anxiously. What's happening? They asked each other, eyes filled with confusion. Salima arrived, her face calm but her eyes wary. The elders stood before the crowd, grim-faced. Salima, the head elder said, your neighbor Tinu has brought troubling news. She claims to have followed you to the river last night. What she saw raises concerns for the safety of this village. We demand an explanation. A hush fell over the crowd. All eyes turned to Salima. The air was thick with tension. Salima stood in the center, her legs trembling like leaves in the wind. The villagers' gazes pierced her. She swallowed, but her throat was dry as harmattan dust. Salima, the elder said again, voice sharper now. Speak. What are you hiding? Salima looked down, hands clenched tightly. I can't, she whispered. I took an oath. If I speak, I will run mad or die. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whispers buzzed like angry bees. An oath? What kind of oath? The head elder turned to a younger man. Bring the chief priest. The villagers waited in tense silence until the chief priest arrived. His long staff tapped the ground as he walked. His eyes, ancient and knowing, swept the crowd before settling on Salima. You have taken an oath? He asked, his voice deep and commanding. Salima nodded, tears streaming down her face. The priest raised his staff and began to chant. His voice rose and fell like the rhythm of the river. The air grew dense. A stillness settled over the square. The villagers watched as the chant coiled around Salima like invisible chains. The priest stopped. He pointed his staff at her. Speak. The spirits will protect you. Salima collapsed to her knees, trembling. It's Kemi, she sobbed. She's not an ordinary woman. She's a ritualist. She made me collect your panties to steal your lives. Gasps of horror surged through the crowd. Our lives, someone cried out. Salima nodded, tears pouring down her cheeks. She promised to make me rich if I helped her. Every time I brought her panties, she performed rituals, using them to steal your strength, your fortune, your souls, to grow her power. A stunned silence fell. Faces turned pale. I had no choice, Salima wept. She said if I disobeyed or broke the oath, she would kill me. I was desperate. I'm sorry. The head elder turned grimly to the priest. What can we do? The priest stroked his beard. We must find Kemi. We must destroy her power. Only then can we break her grip on this village. A wave of fear and fury swept the crowd. The truth behind the colorful buckets and bowls had been revealed. A dark tale of deceit, desperation, and spiritual theft. The chief priest stood tall, his staff firmly planted. His eyes scanned the crowd. The square was so quiet that even the wind seemed to hold its breath. This is no ordinary evil, the priest said, his voice echoing. A powerful witch hides among us, feeding on your lives through Salima's hands. But do not fear. The spirits are with us. He looked around. If you have ever given your panties to Salima, step forward. The curse cannot be lifted if you remain hidden. No one moved at first. Then, slowly, a few women stepped forward, faces pale, eyes cast down. I did, whispered an elderly woman. I gave 3 pairs, admitted a young mother holding her baby close. Soon more followed, until nearly half the village stood before the priest, trembling. The men watched in silence, their expressions tight with disbelief and rage. The priest raised his staff and drew a large circle in the dirt around the women. He began to chant. His voice pulsed with ancient power, calling upon the spirits of the land, the river, and the skies. The ceremonial torches flared. A cool wind swept through the square despite the warm night. As the chanting grew louder, The women began to sway, eyes wide with fear. Then, suddenly, the circle in the dirt glowed faintly, eerily. "The curse is breaking," the priest declared. "But it will not be fully lifted until Kemi's power is destroyed." The villagers gasped, but their fear deepened. The witch still lived. Her lair still pulsed with darkness. The priest closed his eyes, raising his staff high. His voice grew, destroying charms, candles, and strange relics. Each blow weakened her further. Finally, the priest declared, "It is done." They tied Kemi to the ancient tree in the village center, the same tree that once watched over festivals and dances. Now it bore witness to justice. "You cursed our people," the elder said. "Today, your reign ends." Without hesitation, the villagers hurled stones. Kami's screams faded into silence. When it was over, the square fell quiet. The air felt lighter. The priest raised his hands. "The village is free," he said. "But remember, evil thrives where greed and secrecy grow. Be vigilant." Kami's reign had ended, but her curse left deep scars. For her bravery, Tinu paid a price. The morning after Kami's death, she woke to darkness. Her sight was gone. Salima, too, suffered. Her legs weakened under guilt and magic. The priest performed rituals, and slowly, Tinu's vision returned. She wept with gratitude. But Salima's body did not heal. Her legs remained frail. She knelt before the villagers, begging for forgiveness. "I was blinded by greed," she said. "I never meant to harm you." Some villagers pitied her. Others did not. Their stares, their whispers, became too much to bear. One morning, with only a bundle of clothes, Salima left the village. Her name became a warning passed from parent to child. But Tinu stayed. The villagers hailed her as a hero. The king's son took her as his wife, and their union was celebrated. Her bravery had saved them all. The tale of Salima and the stolen panties became legend. Around fires and under moonlit skies, elders told the story. Evil often wears the face of opportunity. Zango found peace again, but it never forgot the price it paid.